Daniel crouched in the thick grass, his fingers brushing against the damp soil as he stared at the small crater before him. The colony had been quiet for weeks, the only sounds coming from the wind sweeping across the red plains of Talara 5. But now, a strange metallic glint caught his eye. Something had fallen from the sky. He approached cautiously. The crater was shallow, but at its center lay a small escape pod, barely bigger than a human. Its surface was scorched in streaks of silver and black, and faint blue lights flickered along its edges. Daniel's heart raced. Pods weren't unusual in the colony. Emergency training exercises often involved similar equipment, but this looked different, sleek, almost organic in its shape, and it hadn't come from any human ship. Daniel tapped the pod's hull, but it didn't respond. Carefully, he activated the manual release. The hatch slid open with a hiss, and he blinked at what he saw inside. A girl sat curled in the pod's small interior. She looked human at first, but something about her was not quite right. Her eyes glimmered faintly like amber in the dim light, and thin, glowing lines traced the contours of her skin. Her hair was silver, almost reflecting the reddish light of the Talara sky. She was small, fragile-looking, yet she radiated a quiet strength. When she stirred, she looked at Daniel and spoke without hesitation. "I am not your pet." Daniel froze. He had not expected her to speak so clearly, or at all. I didn't say you were," he stammered. "Are you okay?" She blinked slowly, assessing him, her amber eyes sharp. "I do not need your help. I can manage on my own." Daniel hesitated. She looked weak, her breathing uneven, her hands trembling slightly. Still, she sat upright, her posture rigid. "Right," he said softly. "I just want to make sure you're not hurt." The girl didn't respond immediately. Instead, she tilted her head as if studying him. Then in a quieter voice, almost a whisper, she said, I am not ready to move yet." Daniel nodded, careful not to make sudden movements. "Then stay here. I'll get help." "No," she said, voice firmer now. "No one else. I do not want visitors." Her eyes narrowed. "Especially not humans." Daniel paused. You're afraid?" She shook her head. "Not afraid. Cautious. You must learn the difference." Daniel swallowed, unsure what to say. He had dealt with alien protocols before, but never like this. Usually contact involved trained diplomats or observers, not someone arriving unexpectedly, speaking in riddles and refusing assistance. "Okay," he said finally. "Then I'll just keep you company until you're ready to move." Her lips pressed together in a line, but she didn't object. Daniel gently lowered himself onto the grass beside the pod. The wind swept around them, carrying the faint metallic scent of scorched metal and dust. He kept his distance, but something, in the way she occasionally looked at him, suggested she appreciated the presence even if she wouldn't admit it. Hours passed in silence. Daniel spoke softly, telling her about the colony, the weather, and the strange storms that sometimes swept across Talara 5. At first she didn't respond. Then a quiet voice said, "Your voice, it is steady. I can understand calmness. This is rare." Daniel blinked. "Thank you. I think." She gave a faint nod. Then, more softly, almost to herself, she said, "I am Leora." Daniel smiled. "I'm Daniel. Welcome to Talara 5, Leora." Her eyes narrowed, studying him. "Welcome is strange. I am not a guest, and yet I am here." Daniel shrugged. "Well, sometimes life doesn't follow plans. You're safe for now." For a moment, they sat in silence. Then Leora's voice broke the stillness. "I saw stars fall today." Daniel glanced at the sky. The red sun was setting behind the distant mountains, casting a golden glow over the plains. "I think I saw that too," he said. "But You mean stars? Real ones? Yes, she said simply. Falling, dying, fire in the sky. It is how the world ends for some. Her eyes darkened as if remembering something she did not want to share. Daniel felt a pang of concern. Leora, do you want to talk about it? She shook her head quickly. No, you would not understand. Humans, they see endings as final. We learn from endings, and we survive. Daniel nodded slowly, unsure what to say. He had learned to respect silence, especially when it came to beings who carried secrets beyond human understanding. Suddenly, a soft, beeping sound interrupted them. Daniel's communicator flashed red. It was a message from the Colony Council. Daniel, the message began. We detected an unauthorized landing. Investigate and report immediately. Do not. The message cut off abruptly. Daniel frowned. That's strange. Your humans are cautious, Leora said. I sense fear. They think of control. You think differently. That is why I am here. Daniel paused. Why are you here? He asked carefully. Leora's eyes drifted to the horizon. I fled. I fled from death. From those who destroyed my world. I came here. Not for safety. Not for humans, just to continue. Daniel's chest tightened. He had expected her to ask for shelter or protection, but she didn't. She wanted only to survive, and yet even in her guardedness, she allowed him to sit near her, talk softly, share warmth without words. The sky darkened further, and Talara's twin moons rose, casting silvery light across the plains. Leora finally stretched her legs, weak but determined. I must move soon, she said. They may come for me. Daniel stood and extended his hand. I can help. I know the terrain. We can reach the cliffs safely. There's a cave system nearby. Good shelter, and no one will find us. She looked at his hand, then back at him. You persist. Why? Because it's the right thing to do, Daniel said simply. No one deserves to be hunted. No one deserves to be alone. Her eyes softened for a fleeting moment. Then, almost inaudibly, she said, Humans sometimes surprise me. They moved carefully across the plains, Leora stepping lightly but unsteadily, Daniel close behind. The winds howled around them, stirring red dust into the air. Leora paused frequently, studying the landscape, scanning the sky. Do you trust me? Daniel asked finally. Leora didn't answer immediately. She didn't speak, didn't move closer, didn't retreat. She simply continued walking, letting him match her pace. Finally, she said, Trust is earned, not given. But I will allow your company. Daniel smiled. It was small, but it was a start. The cliffs rose ahead, jagged and imposing. Daniel led her to a small crevice where the wind was less harsh. Inside, the cave was dark and quiet. Leora stepped inside, brushing dust from her clothing. Then, without asking, she sank to the ground and rested her back against the wall. You are strange, she murmured, glancing at him. You offer help, but you do not command. You do not judge. I'm just a human, Daniel said. But sometimes, that's enough. Leora's amber eyes flicked toward him. Enough. For now. As darkness settled over Tellera 5, Daniel remained at the edge of the cave, keeping watch. Leora slept lightly, her breathing steady but shallow. He noticed the faint glow of the lines on her skin, pulsing slowly, almost like a heartbeat in rhythm with the planet itself. For the first time in days, Daniel felt a quiet hope. The colony might fear what they did not understand, but he knew one truth. Some bonds were forged not by obligation, but by shared courage. And in the quiet cave on a distant world, a human and a mysterious girl had found an unspoken understanding. Neither fully trusted the other yet. Neither fully surrendered. but both had taken the first step. The wind howled outside. The moons shone. Over the plains and somewhere deep in the stars, forces beyond their understanding were stirring. For now, though, they were safe. For now, a stranger from the stars had found, even in a small corner of a human world, a place where she could rest. And Daniel, quietly, realized that this mysterious girl, strong, proud, wary, had already begun to change him in ways he could not yet name. The morning sun barely crested the jagged cliffs of Talara 5, spilling red and gold light across the plains. Daniel stood outside the cave, scanning the horizon with a hand shielding his eyes. The world looked calm, almost peaceful, but he knew better. Out there, somewhere beyond the cliffs, dangers waited. Unknown forces that had destroyed Leora's people. Inside the cave, Leora stirred. Her silver hair glimmered faintly under the weak light, and the glowing lines on her skin pulsed rhythmically. She was awake but did not move, her amber eyes fixed on the rough rock ceiling. "Good morning," Daniel said gently. "Did you sleep well?" She did not answer at once. Then, finally, she spoke, her voice quiet. "Sleep is difficult. Memories come, I see. Fire. Stars fall. Worlds vanish." Daniel nodded, crouching beside her. "I can imagine. But you're safe here. No one can hurt you inside this cave." She did not look at him. "Safety is temporary. My world was safe once too. And yet..." Her voice faltered. She pressed her hands together, hiding them in her lap. "Even here I feel hunted." Daniel hesitated. He wanted to say the right thing, to offer comfort without overstepping. "I'll stay with you," he said simply. "We'll figure this out together. You're not alone." Her gaze flicked toward him, amber eyes narrowing slightly. "You offer much, yet you do not demand. Strange humans, I do not know if I can trust fully. But I will allow your company for now." Daniel smiled faintly. "That's all I ask." They prepared to move, Daniel gathering supplies from his pack. Leora observed quietly, her movements precise and careful. Every so often she paused, listening to the wind, the distant hum of the colony's energy shields, and the subtle shifts of the cliffs. She had the air of someone trained to survive, someone always alert. As they stepped outside, the plains stretched endlessly before them. Red dust swirled around jagged rocks, creating ghostly shapes in the wind. Daniel led Leora carefully, guiding her around sharp stones and steep edges. "You walk differently," he said after a while, noticing her light, almost floating steps. "I must conserve energy," she replied, her tone clipped but not unfriendly. "The enemy, they track by sound and vibration. Humans are loud. I adapt." Daniel nodded. "I'll try to be quieter. We'll move carefully." For hours they traveled in silence. Daniel spoke occasionally, pointing out landmarks and recounting small details about Talara 5. Leora listened, sometimes commenting, other times simply observing. He began to notice small changes in her demeanor, subtle relaxations of her shoulders, a softening of her gaze when she looked at him. At midday, they reached a shallow river that cut across the plains. Leora knelt to drink, her fingers brushing the cool water. Daniel watched quietly, careful not to disturb her. She noticed him staring and raised an eyebrow. "Humans, you observe much," she said softly. "I want to understand," Daniel replied. "It helps me help you." Leora considered this, then nodded once. "Understanding is rare among humans. Most judge quickly. You do not. That is why I tolerate your presence." Daniel felt a faint warmth in his chest. "Thank you," he said simply. They followed the river upstream, moving closer to the cave systems Daniel had discovered earlier. The terrain became more rugged and the winds harsher. Leora moved ahead cautiously, occasionally stopping to touch rocks, whispering words Daniel did not understand. It sounded like a language, older than the colony itself, filled with soft hums and clicks. "What was that?" Daniel asked, curiosity breaking the quiet. "A chant." "Memory preservation," Leora explained, her amber eyes watching the cliffs. "It helps me keep the past clear. My people, we store knowledge and memory. I carry it alone now." Daniel nodded, careful not to press further. He had learned already that some questions required patience. Forcing answers would only drive her away. By late afternoon, they reached the cliffs. The cave entrance Daniel had scouted earlier was narrow but deep, offering protection from the wind and any observers. Inside, the cave opened into a small chamber. Leora sat down, exhausted, resting her back against the wall. "You tire easily," Daniel observed, handing her a small water container. "I am not human," she replied quietly. "Energy comes differently. You are patient. You observe. That is why I feel less burdened in your presence." Daniel lowered himself beside her. "I'm glad," he said softly. Leora did not respond immediately, but after a few moments, she shifted slightly, drawing her knees closer. Her glowing lines dimmed slightly, her breathing evening out. It was a small gesture, but to Daniel it spoke volumes. She was allowing him closer, letting him share her space without fully surrendering. Outside, the winds of Talara 5 howled, but inside the cave, there was a fragile calm. Daniel pulled out his communicator, trying to contact the colony council. Static filled the device. The interference was stronger than he expected. Something, or someone, was jamming their signals. "Someone follows," Leora murmured, her head tilting as if sensing the unseen. "The enemy. They are near. They know I survived. They hunt still." Daniel's jaw tightened. "Then we have to stay hidden. No one can know you're here." Leora's eyes softened faintly. "Humans. You care even when you know the risk. That is unusual. My people would not trust so easily." Daniel shook his head. "Maybe humans have something worth trusting. I do." The cave was quiet for a long time. Leora finally leaned slightly against Daniel's shoulder, not speaking, not moving. It was a fleeting act of comfort, yet it carried more meaning than words. Daniel resisted the urge to speak, simply letting her rest. After a few minutes, she spoke again, barely above a whisper. "I remember my home, the stars, the cities, fire, and silence." Daniel nodded. "It's okay. You're here now. We'll make a plan together." Leora's eyes flicked toward him, amber and glowing softly in the dim light. "Together? Yes. But I am not weak. I am not a child. I do not depend entirely. I only accept." Daniel smiled faintly. "Accepting help doesn't mean weakness. Sometimes it's the strongest choice you can make." She considered this, then nodded once. The silence returned, filled with the subtle sounds of breathing and the faint hum of the wind outside. Hours later, as darkness approached again, Daniel and Leora huddled near a small fire he had built outside the cave entrance. The flames danced, casting flickering shadows on the jagged rocks. Leora watched the flames, silent, her fingers tracing patterns in the dust. "You watch fire strangely," Daniel said. "It reminds you of something?" She nodded faintly. "My world burned once. Fire took everything, yet it also gave life, destruction, and survival. I remember both." Daniel understood. "And you survived." "Yes," she whispered, "because I had to. I must always survive. But humans, you, teach me something new. Comfort without chains. protection, without demand. That is rare. Daniel reached out gently, resting a hand near hers without touching. We'll figure out a way forward. Together. You're not alone. Her amber eyes flicked toward him. I will remember this, but trust must grow slowly. Patience is the path. As night fully settled on Talara 5, the stars above glimmered faintly through the thin atmosphere. The twin moons shone, casting silvery light across the day, plains and cliffs. Leora remained close to Daniel, not fully leaning, not fully distant. The bond between them had begun to grow, fragile and tentative, yet undeniable. Somewhere, beyond the cliffs, unseen eyes watched. Forces that had destroyed. Her people were moving, searching, waiting. But for now, in the quiet shadow of the caves, a human and a mysterious girl had formed the first fragile threads of trust. And for Leora, who had known only loss and survival, the simple act of sitting near someone, of finding quiet warmth beside, another, was a revelation. She was not a pet, she was not a child, she was herself, fierce and proud. And yet, for the first time in a long time, she allowed someone else to share her world, even if just a little. Daniel, for his part, felt a quiet determination settle in his chest. Whatever dangers were approaching, he would protect her. Not because he had to, but because he chose to. Humanity, he realized, was more than technology or colonies. It was courage, compassion, and the will to stand beside someone, no matter how different they were. And tonight, under the cold moons of Talara 5, that courage and compassion had begun. To forge a bond between two beings from different worlds, one human and one mysterious, that neither would ever forget. The morning air on Talara 5 was crisp and dry, carrying the scent of red dust and distant rock. Daniel and Leora had spent the night near the cave, keeping watch over the plains. The stars had vanished with the dawn, leaving only the pale light of the twin moons fading in the sky. Leora moved quietly, pacing the narrow ledge outside the cave, her glowing lines pulsing faintly as though responding to her thoughts. Daniel watched her, noticing the tension in her shoulders, the careful, measured way she placed her feet on the rocky ground. She had survived countless dangers already, yet something still weighed heavily on her. "You've been quiet this morning," Daniel said softly, approaching her. "Thinking?" Leora's amber eyes turned toward him, sharp and piercing. "Always," she replied. "Thinking is survival. Humans, you think differently, often too late." Daniel nodded slowly. "Then help me understand. You've survived, but why? What happened to your world?" She hesitated. For a moment she seemed to weigh whether she should speak. Then, as if deciding he was trustworthy enough, she began. "My people, we were called the Erythians. Our cities, among the stars. We believed knowledge was the greatest treasure. We shared it freely, with anyone who proved worthy." Her voice faltered, almost a whisper. "But a great enemy came. We called them the Vorak. They destroyed worlds. They destroyed my people." Daniel felt a shiver run down his spine. He had read reports of distant alien conflicts, but this was personal. "You survived them?" "Yes," she said, her voice steady again. "But not without cost. I carry what remains in memory. Knowledge, maps, technology, secrets my people protected for centuries. I am the last." Daniel's mind raced. The Vorak were unknown to the colony. If they followed her, it could mean danger for everyone. "Then we need a plan," he said. "We can't stay here, they'll find you." Leora looked away, staring toward the distant plains. "I know, but running only delays. They will always come. The Vorak, they are patient. They hunt across centuries." Daniel considered her words carefully. "Then we fight," he said. "We can't let them destroy anyone else, not if we can help it." Her eyes flicked toward him, surprise mixed with something else. Perhaps admiration, perhaps caution. Humans, you speak boldly, yet you understand little of what you face. Daniel shrugged. Maybe. But I understand enough to know that doing nothing is worse. Leora studied him for a long moment. Then she said softly, I will show you something, a fragment of the past. You must promise, no fear and no judgment. I promise, Daniel said without hesitation. She closed her eyes and placed her hands on the ground. Her glowing lines brightened, tracing intricate patterns on her arms and face. Daniel watched in awe as a holographic projection rose from her palms, shimmering like liquid light. Images of distant cities floated in the air. Vast towers made of crystal, bridges spanning glowing rivers, skies filled with flying ships. But then the scenes changed. Fire consumed the cities. Ships exploded. Shadows moved across the streets, dark and monstrous. Daniel swallowed hard. The Vorak. Leora nodded. Yes, they do not destroy out of anger, but calculation. They erase knowledge, erase life, so nothing survives to resist them. Her voice was calm but heavy. I escaped because I was hidden, but they will not stop. Not until all remnants of my people are gone. Daniel stepped closer. Then we have to stop them from coming here, from destroying others. She glanced at him, her amber eyes reflecting the holographic flames. Humans, you are brave, perhaps too brave. But there is potential. I see it in you. For hours, Leora taught Daniel fragments of her knowledge, maps of the stars, weak points in planetary defense systems, patterns of Vorak movement, everything she had carried in her memory. Daniel absorbed it as best he could, knowing it might be the only chance to protect the colony. As the sun dipped low, painting the plains in orange and red, they moved deeper into the cave system. Leora led the way, navigating narrow tunnels and hidden chambers. Her memory guided them, showing paths invisible to ordinary human eyes. At one point, they stopped in a wide cavern filled with strange crystalline formations. The crystals emitted a faint hum, vibrating in harmony with Leora's own pulsing lines. She knelt, placing her hands on a massive crystal. This is from my world, she said. It stores energy, memory, essence. I can draw strength from it and, if necessary, I can use it to defend. But only once. I cannot repeat. Daniel watched her carefully. Then we have to make sure it's enough. We'll need a strategy, not just power. She nodded, finally allowing a small smile. Strategy. Yes. I see why humans survive. Not just strength, but planning. Adaptation. You remind me of hope. Daniel felt a warmth spread in his chest. Then we'll make a plan together. I won't let them take you or your knowledge without a fight. For a moment she leaned against the crystal, and he noticed her exhaustion. The glow in her lines dimmed slightly. Even in rest, vigilance remains, she murmured. I cannot fully relax, not yet. Daniel moved closer and offered a gentle gesture. You don't have to. Not with me. She glanced at him, the slightest flicker of surprise in her amber eyes. Then, slowly, she lowered herself into a sitting position, leaning against him just a little. I will allow it, but only for now, she said quietly. The cave grew dark as night approached. Daniel kept watch, sensing the tension in the tunnels, the faint hum of the crystals blending with the wind outside. He realized that trust, once broken, was difficult to rebuild. Yet here, in a fragile bond, something new was forming. A bond that could withstand fear, danger, and the unknown. Hours passed, and Daniel spoke softly, recounting stories of the colony, of human resilience, of inventions and triumphs. Leora listened quietly, occasionally asking questions, her curiosity shining through despite her guarded demeanor. You Speak of small victories, she said finally. Yet, they matter. Humans, you celebrate even minor survival. My people, we forget small joys in pursuit of perfection. Perhaps that is why you endure. Daniel smiled faintly. Sometimes, the smallest victories are the most important, and sometimes, sharing them with someone else makes all the difference. Leora's eyes softened. Sharing, yes, that is new. I am learning. The wind outside howled, rattling the cavern walls. Leora shifted slightly closer, allowing the faintest touch of her shoulder to brush against Daniel. It was a small act, almost imperceptible, yet it carried meaning. A gesture of trust, of connection, of fragile comfort in the midst of uncertainty. Daniel felt a quiet determination settle within him. Whatever threats lay beyond the cliffs, whatever dangers the Vorak might bring, he would stand by her. Not out of duty, but choice. Humanity, he realized, was not just about survival. It was about courage, compassion, and the willingness to protect others, even those who were not like you. As night deepened, the cavern seemed to hold them in a protective bubble. Leora's glowing lines dimmed in rhythm with the faint hum of the crystals. She rested lightly against Daniel, not fully surrendering but no longer resisting. It was a small, quiet moment of peace in a galaxy filled with chaos, and for the first time since her escape, Leora allowed herself to hope, not just for survival but for connection. She was not a child. She was not a pet. She was Leora, the last of her people, carrying the legacy of her world. Yet here, with a human beside her, she realized she might find allies, friends, and even comfort in unexpected ways. Daniel, watching the twin moons rise over Talara 5, knew that the coming days would be filled with danger, strategy, and difficult choices. But he also knew that this bond, fragile though it was, might be the key to facing whatever lay ahead. The stars above shone faintly through the thin atmosphere, and somewhere beyond the cliffs, unseen forces moved. The Vorak were patient hunters, and they would not give up. But Daniel and Leora, human and Erythian, had begun a partnership that neither the galaxy nor its predators could easily break. Tonight, in the quiet cavern, amidst the hum of ancient crystals and the faint glow of her skin, they had discovered a truth both simple and powerful. Survival was not only about strength or skill, it was also about trust, courage, and the choice to stand together. And that choice, Daniel realized, was just the beginning. The morning sky on Talara 5 was darkened by strange clouds, heavy with dust and the faint shimmer of distant energy fields. Daniel stood at the edge of the cliff, scanning the horizon through a small telescope. Something was coming. He could feel it. The winds carried not just dust but a tension that made his skin prickle. Leora moved beside him, her glowing lines pulsing faintly in response to the vibrations in the ground. She had not slept well. Her eyes flickered constantly, scanning the skies, the cliffs, even the plains below. "They are near," she whispered almost to herself. "The Vorak, they know I survived. They track the smallest traces." Daniel nodded, keeping his voice low. "Then we need to move fast. We can't let them reach the colony." Leora's amber eyes met his. "You humans, you act quickly. That is rare. But this is not just speed. Strategy is required." Daniel swallowed, understanding the weight of her words. The Vorak were not like any enemy the colony had faced. They did not attack openly. They watched, they calculated, and they struck with precision. But humans, Daniel reminded himself, had something the Vorak might never understand: creativity, courage, and an unyielding will to protect. They returned to the cave to gather supplies. Daniel packed rations, energy cells, and the small devices he had rigged to detect energy signatures in the environment. Leora carried only what she needed, her movements precise, almost ceremonial. As she packed, she touched a crystal embedded in the cave wall. Its faint hum resonated with her as if it were aware of the danger approaching. I can Use this, she said quietly, but only once. Energy from my world. It will help. Enough to defend. Temporarily. Daniel nodded. Then we'll make it count. They emerged from the cave and began descending the cliffs toward the open plains. Daniel led the way carefully, knowing the terrain could be used to their advantage. Rocky outcroppings, deep crevices, and sudden rises offered natural cover. Leora moved lightly, almost gliding, her amber eyes scanning constantly. Hours passed, intense silence. The sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the red plains. Then, far in the distance, Daniel saw a glimmer, movement that did not belong. Shadows shifted unnaturally, and energy pulses flickered like distant stars. "Durai, Forak," Leora whispered. Her voice was steady, but Daniel could hear the edge of urgency. "They scout first, they test before attack. We must prepare." Daniel knelt behind a rocky ridge, motioning for Leora to do the same. "We'll use the terrain," he said quietly. "Their ships may be fast, but they cannot maneuver as easily on the surface. We'll lure them close then." He hesitated, unsure if his plan would work. "Then we'll strike." Leora's gaze studied him, measuring his resolve. Finally, she nodded. "I will. Aid. But know this. Vorak do not hesitate. They destroy without thought. Humans, you may be surprised, but not safe." As twilight fell, the first ships appeared on the horizon. Sleek, dark, and almost organic in shape, they glided silently above the plains, scanning for signs of life. Daniel's chest tightened. They were unlike anything humans had seen before. Leora's pulse quickened, and the lines on her skin glowed brighter, reflecting her growing energy. "They sense me," she said, "and you. They sense your intent. They will test." Daniel nodded, gripping a small rifle he had prepared. "Then let them test. We'll show them humans fight differently. We adapt." The first scout ship descended, a triangular shape, glinting under Talara 5's fading light. It hovered briefly, sending scanning beams across the terrain. Leora whispered instructions, guiding Daniel to use rocks and shadows to stay hidden. They moved carefully, crouching low, avoiding detection. Then, without warning, the scout ship fired. A pulse of energy swept across the ground, striking a rocky outcrop near them. Dust and sparks flew. Daniel fired his rifle, aiming for the ship's energy source. The shots glanced off the hull, but one hit caused a faint shimmer of disruption. The ship veered, scanning again. "They are cautious," Leora said, "but they will attack fully soon." Daniel nodded. "Then we prepare. We make our stand." As darkness fell completely, the main fleet emerged. Dozens of Vorak ships glided in formation, scanning, probing, testing. Their weapons glowed faintly, ready to strike. Daniel realized the scale of the threat. They were outnumbered, but humans had one advantage: ingenuity. "Leora," he whispered, "your crystal. Can we use it now?" She hesitated, placing her hands on the crystal embedded in the cave. Energy surged through her lines, pulsing brighter and brighter. "Once now," she said firmly. Light exploded from the crystal, sending a shockwave across the plains. The first wave of scout ships faltered, their energy shields flickering. Daniel took the chance, using the terrain to his advantage. He fired at weak points in the scout ships, while Leora guided him, whispering coordinates and strategies. The combination of human determination and her alien knowledge created chaos among the Vorak fleet. One ship crashed into the plains, its hull sparking. Another veered off course, forced to retreat. Daniel and Leora moved swiftly, using rocks, shadows, and the glow of the crystal to stay ahead. Each strike they made was precise, calculated, and daring. "They underestimate humans," Leora said, softly, her voice steady despite the tension. "They do not know your courage?" Daniel smiled faintly, ducking behind a rocky ridge as a Vorak pulse narrowly missed him. "They're about to learn." Hours passed in this tense battle. The Vorak fleet tried to encircle them. But Daniel and Leora anticipated each movement, using the terrain, the crystal's energy, and quick thinking to stay one step ahead. Slowly, the enemy's coordination faltered. Ships collided, shields failed, and panic spread through the fleet. Finally, as dawn broke over the plains, the Vorak retreated. Their remaining ships fled into the distant atmosphere, leaving behind wreckage and silence. Daniel and Leora stood together on a ridge, looking down at the plains below. Smoke rose from the destroyed ships, and the first light of Talara 5 bathed the landscape in red and gold. You, humans, fight. Unexpectedly, Leora said softly, her glowing lines dimming as the energy from the crystal waned. I underestimated your courage. Daniel lowered his rifle, breathing heavily. We didn't do it alone. You guided me. We worked together. Leora studied him, amber eyes reflecting faint sunlight. Together, yes. That is new. For me, to trust, to share, power. Humans, you are remarkable. Daniel smiled faintly. We learn from each other. You taught me about the Vorak. I showed you what humans can do when we stand together. They descended to the plains, inspecting the wreckage. Leora touched one of the fallen ships, her hands brushing over alien metal. So much destruction, yet survival remains. That is what you call hope, human? Daniel nodded. Hope and courage, even in the face of overwhelming odds. Leora finally allowed herself to rest, sitting beside him. Her head tilted slightly, a subtle sign of comfort and trust. I am learning, she said softly. Not all humans are the same. Some offer protection, even without command. That is rare. Daniel reached out, placing a hand near hers, not touching, just close. We'll keep going. We'll prepare for the next time, and we'll face it together. The wind swept across the plains, carrying the faint scent of burned metal and dust. The twin moons of Talara 5 shone faintly in the sky, reflecting on the scattered wreckage. Despite the danger that still lingered, a sense of calm settled between them. Leora allowed herself a small smile, the first real one since her arrival. Together, yes, that is the beginning. Daniel nodded. He knew this battle was only the first. The Vorak would return, stronger and more determined. But humanity had shown something the enemy could not easily understand. Courage, ingenuity, and the will to protect even those unlike themselves. And in the quiet between battles, amidst the red plains and glowing ruins, a human and a mysterious girl, different worlds, different pasts, had discovered a bond that could survive the galaxy's darkest threats. For now, they had won. For now, they were together. And that was enough. The red sun rose slowly over Talara 5, casting a warm glow across the plains. The wreckage of the Vorak ships lay scattered like fallen stars, silent and still. Daniel walked among the remains, inspecting the damage and ensuring no hidden threats remained. Each ruined ship told a story of human courage, of quick thinking, and of a determination that had surprised even Leora. Leora followed quietly, her glowing lines dim after the energy surge she had given to help in the battle. She had been exhausted, yet there was a light in her amber eyes that had not been there before. Standing amidst the wreckage, she finally spoke. You humans, you endure even when everything is against you, she said softly. I see now why my people could not conquer entirely. Not strength alone, not knowledge, but courage and choice. Daniel smiled faintly. It's not just courage. It's also about protecting others. You've seen it today. You survived because we didn't give up, and I didn't give up on you. Her gaze softened, a rare warmth breaking through her cautious exterior. I am not used to this protection. I feared it. Yet, it comforts. Strangely. Daniel stepped closer. You don't have to fear it. You can rest, even if, just for a while, you're not alone anymore. Leora studied him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she sat down on a nearby rock, allowing herself to relax slightly. She looked out at the plains, the smoke of the destroyed Vorak ships rising faintly into the sky. Together, yes, that is, new. I did not think I could feel safe again. Daniel sat beside her, keeping a respectful distance. Safety is earned, he said. And sometimes it starts with trust. You've earned mine. I hope I've earned yours. Leora's amber eyes flickered toward him. I trust, cautiously. But yes, I allow it. For now, they stayed in silence for a while, listening to the gentle hum of the wind across the plains. The battle had ended, yet the memory of danger lingered. Still, for the first time in a long while, Leora felt a sense of calm. She was not a prisoner of fear or loss. She was herself and she had allies. Daniel spoke quietly, breaking the silence. We should return to the colony. They'll need to know what happened and we can prepare for the future. The Vorak may come back. Leora nodded. Yes, but I am not ready to show everything. Humans must learn gradually, not all understand immediately. Daniel understood. Patience had been key to building the bond between them. Then we'll go slowly, together, step by step. As they moved toward the colony, Leora observed Daniel closely. She noted his careful movements, his consideration for the terrain, and the way he spoke softly to keep them alert. He was human, yet capable of understanding and adapting in ways even she had not expected. At a shallow river along the way, they paused. Leora knelt, touching the water, letting it flow over her hands. Water feels familiar, she murmured. It reminds me of home, before the fire, before the Vorak. Daniel knelt beside her. Talara 5 may not be your home, but it's a start, and you're not alone here anymore. Her amber eyes met his, and for a fleeting moment the walls around her heart softened. She allowed herself to lean slightly closer, not fully, but enough, that Daniel could feel the subtle warmth of her presence. You, humans, you teach patience, courage, and choice, she said softly. I have learned more than I expected. Not just survival, but companionship, connection. Daniel smiled, careful not to overstep. Connection is part of being human. We survive better together. That's how we thrive. By the time they reached the colony, the first humans had begun to gather, drawn by the smoke and the glow of the battle's aftermath. Soldiers, engineers, and council members approached cautiously, unsure of what to expect. Daniel and Leora stepped forward together, their presence a testament to the victory they had won. The colony's leader, a tall woman named Commander Yara, stepped forward. Her eyes scanned the wreckage and then rested on Leora. You survived, she said. Her voice was calm but filled with awe. I survived. Because I was not alone, Leora replied, her tone measured but proud. Humans helped, not as rulers, not as captors, but as allies. Commander Yara's eyes widened slightly. Then you have proven something important, that even against overwhelming force, humans, and those who choose to stand with them, can prevail. Daniel nodded. It was not just me, it was both of us, and the courage of everyone willing to act. The Vorak underestimated human determination. The council members murmured among themselves, realizing the significance of what had occurred. The Vorak were a powerful enemy, feared across distant worlds, yet humanity had faced them and survived. Leora stepped forward, glancing at Daniel briefly. "I owe much to him," she said softly. "And now, I owe it to your people as..." "Well, knowledge from my world can help, but only if humans are ready." Commander Yara nodded. "Then you will teach us. But first, you will rest. We have food, shelter, and safety here. You do not need to hide anymore." For the first time since arriving on Talara 5, Leora allowed herself to relax completely. She sat beside Daniel, leaning gently against him, not fully but enough that he felt the subtle shift of trust and comfort. She was not a pet. She was not a burden. She was a survivor. And now, someone willing to share her world with humans. The colony slowly began to rebuild after the battle, inspired by the courage displayed on the plains. Engineers studied the Vorak wreckage, learning from the technology, while soldiers prepared for the inevitable return of the enemy. And in the midst of it all, Daniel and Leora remained close, their bond quietly growing with each passing day. "You, humans, you are different than I expected," Leora said softly one evening, as they watched the twin moons rise over the colony. "Not just strong, not just clever, but compassionate. That is rare." Daniel smiled. "It's not perfect, but it's part of who we are. And sometimes, it's enough to change the outcome. It's enough to save lives. It's enough to make a difference." Leora leaned slightly closer, resting a hand on the ground near his. "Then, I will stay. Not because I must, but because I choose. And because I see that, even in humans, there is hope." Daniel nodded, feeling a deep sense of relief and pride. Humanity had not just survived this encounter, they had grown stronger. And together with Leora, they could face the future, no matter what the galaxy held. The colony celebrated their victory quietly, knowing that the Vorak might return someday. But now they had learned something important. Courage, intelligence, and the will to protect others were more powerful than fear or oppression. And that was a lesson humans, and Leora, would carry forever. As night fell, the stars twinkled above Talara 5. Leora sat beside Daniel, allowing herself to feel warmth and comfort in his presence. She had resisted. She had fought. She had claimed her independence. And yet, in that quiet moment, she allowed herself a small joy, trusting, choosing, and sharing a connection with another being. Daniel reached out gently, resting a hand near hers, careful not to overstep. She did not pull away. For the first time, she did not have to. "Humans, you are remarkable," she said softly, almost a whisper, not because of strength or technology, but because of courage, choice, and heart. Daniel smiled. "That's what makes us human, and together, we can face anything." The twin moons of Talara 5 shone above, reflecting in their eyes. The red plains stretched endlessly, quiet now, safe for the moment. For Daniel and Leora, the adventure was only beginning, not with fear, but with courage, companionship, and the knowledge that even the smallest acts of trust could change the course of the galaxy. In that quiet, starlit moment, a human and a mysterious girl, different worlds, different paths, sat side by side. She had claimed her independence, he had offered his loyalty, and together they had discovered a truth simple yet powerful. Survival was not only about strength or knowledge, it was about courage, trust, and the choice to stand together, no matter the storm. And with that choice, they had changed their world, and perhaps one day the galaxy itself.